Yeah, I was looking at 20 to life. Yeah.
20 to life. What did your parents say to that?
I mean, they didn't agree with it. I mean, I mean, because through this whole thing, like from the age of 13, I'd kind of, destroyed the relationship with my parents because I was kind of like, the proverbial, like, rebel without a cause, except I had a cause. It was like LSD and marijuana. But, I'd really destroyed the relationship with them. There was a lot of friction. They really weren't happy. They didn't exactly know at the level I was doing stuff, but they knew I was doing stuff. And, even though they wanted to deny it, it was still kind of there. You know what I'm saying?
It's got to be tough for them to take.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, they obviously weren't happy, but, when they did find out like the time I was facing, I mean, they thought it was wrong. They were like, I was a first time nonviolent offender. So they were like, how can you be looking at 20 to life?
But did they know how in depth you are into it?
I mean, yeah, once I caught the case and the newspaper articles and stuff came out, yeah, they knew.
Holy shit.
I mean, the
You mean
Washington,
my son?
yeah, the Washington Post was calling me the Fairfax County LSD kingpin or the Northern Virginia LSD kingpin.
You got that fame and notoriety you were looking for, except
Yeah.
the wrong kind.
I mean, on the outlaw status, yeah, my outlaw resume was pretty big back then.
So you go away, and you do, how many years did you do total?
21.
You did 21 years.
85%, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. That first day, and I've heard this, I've never been to prison, but I've heard this, that you're going to get as reformed as you're going to get once that door closes the first night. Is there any validity to that?
I don't know. I think for me, it was more, I had a lot of time. So, I was very angry at first. So, I did get involved right with college classes. Like right when I came in, they used to, you could take them through the Pell Grant. They actually had the instructors come in, right from, I was in Manchester, Kentucky, a medium high security prison. And it was weird because they had the teachers coming in from Eastern Kentucky to teach in the prison at night. And I used to sell drugs at Eastern Kentucky. So that was like kind of weird.
Probably.
Did you ever sell
some of
to instructors?
Yeah.
No.
Hey, remember me?
But that's interesting. So you get all this time, and at what point during your time do you decide to use it? And I know this from my stint in rehab. So my stint in rehab, I went in there with 3 notebooks, 2 books, because I'm going to use my time. I'm not going to sit there and waste it. You can sit there and you can rest. You can do this. You can do that. You can screw around. But you chose to use your time. How did that decision come about?
I think it was a gradual process, like over the first 10 years. But I mean, I jumped right into the college classes. I mean, basically because like prison is real boring, so
Do anything.
Something
right?
to do.
So, and I'd always been a big education dude before I got into drugs. And both my parents are like, like my whole family, even my little brother and little sister, like everybody has master's degrees. I finally got my master's degree in prison. So I was the last one to get it, but, it took me a while to get it. But, yeah, so I dived right into the education, but it kind of took me like 10 years. I was just kind of doing that, just kind of break the monotony, and kind of repair the relationships with my parents because they were big believers in education. So when I started getting like 4.0s and stuff like that, that's how I kind of repaired the relationship with my family during my first couple years. But yeah, it took me like 10 years, but like 10 years in, maybe like 6 years in, I kind of decided I wanted to be a writer, and that's how like everything kind of progressed from then.
It's just another form of creation. So this is actually, it sounds crazy that you go to prison as a successful drug dealer and you end up in prison as a successful writer, because like I said before, I have the feeling about you that you would have been successful no matter what you do. You just have to put your full energy and your full thought. I'm watching the way you're just reeling off statistics and math in your head on these drugs. This is this, this is this, this is, yeah, and I did this and this and this. How did you figure out the writing game? Because the writing game is brutal.
Meanwhile, Kevin hasn't been successful in one venture in his life yet. But
Yeah, I just,
I'm very successful at breaking your chops.
I took the courses, so I started out in the classes, but then they did away with the Pell Grants. So then luckily by that time I'd taken the Pell Grants for 2 years. So I had like really good grades. And so my parents, said, if you want to continue college, we'll pay for correspondence courses. So I actually, I got in a correspondence program through Penn State. That's weird too, because I used to sell drugs there. So,
he goes from,
It's like visiting the campus. That's all
he
it
goes
is.
from Penn State to State Penn.
So I got my AA degree through correspondence. And when you do correspondence, it's all through the mail. You can basically do like a business kind of administration route, or you can do like a liberal arts. And if you do like a liberal arts or humanities, I mean, it's basically like a lot of writing. So writing heavy, like history, writing papers. So I started kind of teaching myself to write. So I got my AA degree, then I got my BA degree through University of Iowa, and then I finally, somewhere, about 15 years down the line, I got my master's degree, from California State University, and that was more film heavy. But I just always saw as a writer, it's like a progression. It's like I started writing articles, just like little pieces, and I started getting them published from the inside. I actually started writing for Vice. We started doing a column for Vice, like when I was in prison, and then I got out. This is like early 2000s, and I got out, and Vice is like this big media conglomerate. Like I had no idea, and I was like a Vice OG. I'd been writing for them since they were like this little tiny company. So,
And you also wrote for one of my favorite publications,
which one?
Penthouse.
Oh yeah, I did a lot of stuff.
You're gonna say Playgirl.
No, I did a lot of stuff for Penthouse. So I wrote for like a ton of overseas. So I started out articles. Then like 2005, I started doing the books, all gangster books. And
there's a ton of them out there.
Yeah,
I mean,
I got like 25 books out.
That's great. Well, you know what? Like I said, you have all the time in the world to sit down there and reevaluate your life and really pursue in that fashion something that you obviously got a talent for.
I mean, I wrote the majority of those books in prison too. So, I've done a couple since I've been out, but even the ones that I put since I've been out, I wrote a lot of the stuff, so all like African-American drug lords, like prison gangs, like mafioso, cause I was locked up with all these dudes. So, I kind of got the idea, I was like, I would just go up to like dudes that I was on the compound with, and I would be like, man, let me write your story. Some said no, some said yes. So that's kind of how it went. And, but my whole trajectory, the whole way with the writing thing, like I saw filmmaking was like the ultimate goal. Because to me, as a writer, I mean, that's what you do. You do articles, you do books, then you do film. Like if you're going to advance,
It's like the
if you're
progression.
yeah, that's a progression.
I'm wondering where you're going from here, but don't go anywhere just yet because you got some big things out. I know you just had White Boy on Netflix, where you wrote it, you produced. What were your credits on there? I know you wrote it.
Yeah, no, I wrote it and produced it. So actually, Sean Reck from Transition Studios, he's the director and it's his studio. But I brought the idea to him. It was based like on because I'd been corresponding with Rick since around 2005 till I got in 2015.
We're talking about Rick Wersch, White Boy Rick himself.
Yeah, and we were corresponding. He was in one prison, and I was another, and I was writing about his case while I was in there. Because when he told me about his case, because I mean, this dude was like started out like he was brought into the game, as an informant when he was 14, and I was like, how do you got like a life sentence like when you're an informant? So that was just like. It was like crazy, and it was like, and even in prison, like you always, everybody in prison, like you distance yourself from informant. But this dude, like the legend about this dude, he had like this mythology from Detroit. It's like, it was kind of like a character, like somebody like 50 Cent. Like half the people loved him, half the people hated him. He had that kind of I guess admiration or envy or hate that he generated. So he had like this crazy story. And I thought it was crazy too, because it was like, how can a 16-year-old white kid like run the drug trade in the crack era in Detroit? So it was like phenomenal, this whole story.
Anomaly.
So, and then I found out like all the details and everything. And so when I got out, that was like one of the stories I wanted to do because we talked about doing a book and stuff, but I was getting out. I wanted to help him get out too because I was like, dude, like, this dude ended up doing like 32 years in prison for, not a first-time offense, but a nonviolent offense.
Maybe you saw a little bit of yourself in him.
Yeah, we did. We had a lot of similarities, and plus he had got a life sentence when he was 17. And in 2012, the Supreme Court said you can't give a juvenile a life sentence. That was illegal, and they still had him in. So, his case was very political, but I was very blessed to meet Sean Reck, and Sean Reck kind of mentored me because I hadn't only been out of prison maybe like 18 months at this time. I wanted to be a filmmaker, and I had done some little shorts and stuff like that, but nothing serious or nothing big time. And, once he had found out I had access to the story and he could base the whole documentary off my work, he like basically, made me offer and, he mentored me, in how to make documentaries. And like for that, I'm like, eternally grateful to him because I learned from him. I got to be a part of this amazing documentary that ended up on Netflix and ended up top 10 on Netflix. And
They just took it off too. They
yeah.
just took it
April
off.
1st. Yeah. We didn't renew with them. So it's supposed to go on Tubi though. When you switch like platforms, sometimes you got to wait like 2-3 months.
Yeah.
Contractually. So it should be on Tubi, sooner than later. So it's going to go on Tubi. We've never done the AVOD before. Like that's an advertising video on demand. So it's supposed to go on that shortly. But, I hope to get Rick out. And like I said, the documentary, we can't say that was everything. There was a lot of people, a lot of advocacy, on Rick's behalf, but we helped to get him out. And I got to make this amazing film. And more importantly, I got to learn how to make a film from Sean Reck was he's an Emmy-winning writer, director, producer. He cut his teeth. He did like 200 Crime Stopper shows for all the networks. And he won 9 Emmys, not like regional Emmys in Ohio. Not discounting them by any means, but not like a national.
An Emmy's an Emmy. You could always say I'm an Emmy Award winner.
But yeah, so he basically mentored me and trained me, and
you're
while
still
we were
going,
doing
though.
this,
But you're still going. It's not like you're one and done. You wrote 25 books. You did White Boy, and you're still going. Now you got this new one coming out, Nightlife, which I got to tell you, I watched it. Brother, it's fantastic. Like,
Thank you.
fantastic. I was hoping to watch it in snippets because it's, 2 hours?
No, it's about 75 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. I was hoping to watch it in snippets. I ended up sitting through the whole thing. And I got the attention span of a gnat. He's
it's just one of those things you can't.
Oh, it's awesome.
You don't. You don't want to leave yourself with a cliffhanger. You start watching it, you just got to keep watching it to the end.
So I love the fact that you chose to focus. You're actually going somewhere else. You're going somebody who's trying to change the circumstances around them.
Yeah.
So it's about this. The preacher's name, and it's his name.
Reverend Kenneth McCoy.
Reverend Kenneth McCoy, and he's taken back the streets of St. Louis. It's amazing. And where's that coming out on? Let's start there. Where and when? Yeah,
so that's the north side of St. Louis. The north side of St. Louis has like perennially been in the top 5 like for murder capital of the world.
But then they got that line.
Yeah, it's called the Delmar Divide. It's crazy, man, because it's like the north of this Delmar Divide is predominantly like black and poor, and south is rich and white, and you go from like $1 million houses to like crack houses, and it's basically like a block apart. And it's weird too because I mean, it's not like there's not cops there, but all the cops are where the property is, where the property is valuable. Like the other side, like they don't care. I even know, like I interviewed like citizens, and they'll walk across a block to like where the Central West End is, and there are cop cars sitting there, and they'll be like, hey, there's like a open air drug market over there, and the cops will just be like,
yeah, we know.
Yeah.
So I mean, but I think this story that I did, Nightlife, it's a microcosm of what's happening like all over our country, like with redlining, gentrification, all this different type of issues. And when I met this guy, the Reverend Kim McCoy, I actually did an article about him and his ministry called Nightlife for Vice first. It was called the People Who Walk St. Louis's Most Dangerous Streets. And I did this in 2015. And at the same time, I'm starting to make White Boy at this time. So I want to make my own film because I'm learning, but I don't have any funding, right? So I'm looking for something local, and I'm looking for something like I can get some college students, with cameras out. And, I kind of find this story. So we just go out with this guy. I'm like, hey, can we just come out with you and start following you with cameras? And he's like, yeah, cool. So we just start following him with cameras.
Insane, by the way. So I didn't share it. I won't share it. But your camera crew, or you out there, I don't know whether you were on set at the time. They're just walking around. Yeah, and you're pop, like automatic gunfire.
No, I'm in the film. You actually see me a couple times. I'm actually walking in the film. So I'm actually in the film, walking around with like a yellow vest on. So, it was crazy. So it's funny because one of my cameramen he was actually an ex-military dude. Like, I don't know. He was like 8 years. Like he was in, I don't know, like Iraq, Kuwait, or whatever, I guess in the 90s or 2000s. And then he got out, and he used his GI Bill to go to film school. And then I met this guy. His name's Corey Mack. He's a producer and a cameraman on the film. And so, and he was just starting, filming like at that time. So it wasn't like he was that good. But the reason I brought him was because he had he was licensed to carry and he knew how to use it. Ex-military dude. So I knew like nobody
Kill two
else
birds
knew.
with one stone.
Nobody else knew. But this dude, like every time we went out, this dude had like a 9. Thank God he never had to break it out. We never had to use it. But I mean, he was an experienced.
Yeah.
He was an experienced dude. So he'd been in a lot of situations and war situations. So but he had it. So I knew, and some like the Reverend Kim McCoy and probably some of the other camera people, they didn't do that. But that was important for me, especially as ex-con, because I mean I can't carry a gun. Just to have somebody experienced, So yeah, we followed him around for 2 years and we filmed. He goes out at night, like from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. on Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, like all the hot spots. And he's basically a violence interrupter. That's his main thing. But he brings out like fruits, food, blankets, socks, underwear. He has Narcan on him, in case somebody's ODing. He tries to get the addicts into rehab. He tries to get the homeless people, into shelters. So that's kind of his thing. And so we filmed it for 2 years. So I got all this footage, man. We got tons of footage because I'm bringing out like 3 camera people, and every time we're going out. And then I got to start like this editing process, And I'm doing White Boy, so I knew how to do it, but it was different because like I'm doing this basically with no budget. I don't have any money, So people are doing a lot of stuff for free for me, or I'm getting a lot of younger people just graduated college. They want to be involved in something. So, it took me a long time. It took me like 5 years to make this documentary. 2 years of shooting and then 3 years of editing. But, finally, it's ready. We're going to premiere July 15th at the St. Louis Filmmaker Showcase. For me, it's important to premiere this film in St. Louis because it's a St. Louis film. And what this guy is doing, he's basically the Reverend Kenneth McCoy. He's on a mission to save his community. So I wanted to have that impact on the community. But, right after, probably in August, we're gonna release it nationally. So it'll be available like on, Amazon, iTunes, and then I'll be looking for a streaming deal. I can't say it's gonna end up on Netflix because, I don't know what Netflix is gonna want to buy at that point when we're ready to put it up.
Well, with this story, because there's very few people in this world that actually, everybody says I want to change the world, but there's very few people who are actually ready to take a hands-on approach to changing the world. We're about a month out from your premiere, and would you have a problem with us playing your trailer?
No, go ahead. Yeah, you can play it.
I seen all these bombed out buildings, all this violence. What are you doing? This is your neighborhood. These are your people.
St. Louis is often described as one of the most divided cities in the country.
The opioid crisis is the biggest public health emergency.
Are solved with a gun.
The number of homicides in St. Louis this year passed 200.
This is about making a human connection.
You have to be able to see that there is some hope down the road.
I wanted to go where nobody else will, where everybody's scared to go. Show that God hasn't forgotten.
When the pistol's getting popped, is you there? You telling me to quit?
You might as well. It ain't working.
Man, I can't do that, man.
Your camera's off now. This real shit.
What's the point in having faith if you're not going to take a risk, if you're not going to take a chance, if you're not going to put yourself in harm's way for the sake of a greater good? What's the point?
Well, you can tell it's Friday night. Y'all, let's have a word of prayer real quick. Lord, we praise you. We thank you for your goodness and your mercy. We thank you.
I've seen this city, and I've seen the spirit of these people, and I've watched these folk fight for their neighborhoods, street by street, house by house.
I start to say I hate to be so preachy, but I am a preacher. But anyway, we're just so blessed. Say hi, Reverend Brown.
Hey, everybody. Hello.
I'd love for our audience to see this stuff because like you did what you did. You changed your life around. And we're coming to the end of this thing, and I think it's important for people to know that just because your current circumstances are now doesn't mean that they could be your future circumstances. So at the end of every show, every guest that we bring in there, we walk them through this journey. You went through a really, really rough journey. Nonviolent offender, 21 years in prison that you did out of a 25-year, 25, 26, doesn't matter.
25 years.
25 years. So if you had to quantify all this suffering that you went through in your life, what do you think it's taught you?
I would just say, I always tell people, my biggest thing is I'm relentless. You know, like
that's what I took out of it. Just keep going. You know, he's like a keep going kind of guy. I mean,
I'm not the most talented. There's people that are way more talented than me at everything, you know, but I think my best attribute, my best talent is I'm relentless. I don't give up. And like I say, I had to walk this journey. I mean, I look at it now, whatever. A lot of people are like, how do you do 21 years or whatever? But I mean, I did it. I had to do it. I didn't have any choice. You know, so I did it, and I walked through, and I did the best I can at every moment, every day. I mean, do I look back now and say, "Oh, you could have did this way, you could have did this way, whatever," you know? And even for my first 5 years, like I would look back like on my case, and I was like, "What could I have done different? Like if I did this at this point." But you know, everybody can do that in life. At some time, you just got to think, whatever you did, you made the best decision, what you thought at the time, even if it was an awful decision. So you just got to leave the past in the past, you know, and keep moving forward. So that's how I do everything. You know, I don't allow any negativity in my life. I don't dwell on anything that happened.
You got a great attitude.
You know, I just move forward, man. You know, because I even see it out here. And I this is a big thing that doing all that time taught me, right? Because I did so much time. I saw so many people come back, right? And I saw so many people like, they were like hung up on shit. They couldn't get over it. Like their girl left them. You know, their baby mama won't let them see their kids. You know, somebody snitched on them. You know, they lost their house. They lost their money. You know, their best friend betrayed them. You know, all this different stuff. And I saw these people and they're just like, they're like fucked up. They keep dwelling on the same shit. And then they're like, you know, they're on drugs. You know, they're on like that chaos, that gang violence. You know, they're on whatever to get their mind off of the issue that's eating them up. And you know, I saw this in prison, like it's everywhere, like right in front of your face, because it's such a negative world, right? And I just decided, like, I'm not going to be that person, you know. I'm not going to linger on, you know, all the people, you know, that turned informant on me. I'm not going to linger on this. And, you know, but then when I get out in the world, I see at the same time, you know what I tell people all the time, right? I say, look, man, the only thing that's going to get in the way of your dreams is yourself.
That's a good point.
You got to start looking back. You know, there's a quote that I hear all the time, and I just heard it today too. That's why the windshield is bigger than the rearview mirror.
It's a good point, and I think we'll leave it there. Seth, thank you so much for coming all this way to join us. This has been an eye-opening experience. I've learned a lot. I want everybody to look out for your documentary, Nightlife. Of course, White Boy. Continue to watch that. It'll be out. I'm sure that's a really good documentary. So I think it's going to be out everywhere. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast. I want to remind everybody, go to BelladamaCigars.com, put in Suffering 10. You get a nice 10% discount. Thanks again to Toyota of Hackensack. Visit ToyotaHackensack.com. And let's think about all the stuff that we learned today. Everyone wants to be important. Sometimes the best things come from the worst things. Anything is possible if you choose to use your time, but most importantly, be relentless. I like that very much. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast, The Suffering of an Ex-Con Filmmaker with Seth Ferranti. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Follow Mike at Mike_Failace. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson. Also follow the Suffering Podcast. And we're going to see you on the next episode of the Suffering Podcast.
Let's talk about the suffering.